to get this nearly $1 million grant, 3 of 10 hotel rooms would need to house senior women and families from the zone in Phoenix or migrants who came under Title 42. Since 2021, Scottsdale has received money from the Arizona Department of Housing to provide a roof for people experiencing homelessness. They rent out 10 rooms at a hotel near Indian Bend and Pima Roads.
This hotel has been operating this program for a year, and we've been operating the program itself since 2021. 0 calls for service, 84% success rate, and we're helping the entire community.
As of Tuesday night, Council agreed to expand the program to more people, using 3 rooms for migrants and homeless.
We're targeting senior citizens and families or single mothers with children.
Councilmember Barry Graham voted against this, voicing his concerns Tuesday.
Do you look into their background or vet them as far as any criminal record or anything like that?
Councilmember Solange Whitehead says migrants are vetted by ICE at the border and came into the country legally under Title 42.
Their time in a hotel would be usually shorter. It's a matter of their paperwork is finished, and then it's arranging transportation, often for these people to move out of state.
Something some feel is a step in the right direction.
I think it's a really nice gesture that Scottsdale is having, but I do think that as a whole, our valley needs to work on more permanent solutions.
Reporting in Scottsdale, Alexis Dominguez for Arizona's Family.
The city of Phoenix